upset about Israel in Gaza at the moment are anti-Semites. Doesn't mean that it's not possible to oppose Israel's actions in Gaza without being an anti-Semite. Of course it is. But to say, can I name one of those people? We'd have to look at an example and analyze it together. No, off the top of my head, I can't name an example. But the Daily Wire is a publication, right? We publish, we curate. I pay people to speak. I'm not just a platform where everybody can kind of build their own account and say the things that they want to say. I pay people, and I'm not going to pay people to say things that go beyond certain lines of what I believe. Why would I do that?
Just a few months ago, the CEO of Daily Wire, who just said that, said, "In my current capacity, I cannot fire Candace Owens. That's something Ben and I have in common since he is also not an executive in the company and cannot hire or fire people. But even if we could, we would not fire Candace because of another thing we have in common, a desire not to regulate the speech of our hosts even when we disagree with them. Candace is paid to give her opinion, not mine or Ben's. Unless those opinions run afoul of the law or she violates the terms of her contract in some way, her job is secure and she is welcome at Daily Wire." This proves to be a complete and total lie, as you can hear here.
But the Daily Wire is a publication, right? We publish, we curate. I pay people to speak. I'm not just a platform where everybody can kind of build their own account and say the things that they want to say. I pay people, and I'm not going to pay people to say things that go beyond certain lines of what I believe. Why would
What's going on, everybody? Today, we're going to weigh in on Jeremy Boring, the CEO of Daily Wire. Hopped in an X or Twitter space last night with a bunch of critics of Daily Wire and himself, and actually had a debate and a discussion, which was super entertaining and interesting. I respect Jeremy Boring for being there. It takes a lot of balls. It takes a lot of bravery. With all that being said and all the compliments I could give, I don't think he made very much sense. He defined what he thought is anti-Semitism. He completely blew off the anti-Semitism speech laws which were being talked about. He claims that he opposes them, yet doesn't say much about them. He defines anti-Semitism different than the speech laws being passed through government, and also different from the rabbi that Candace debated. And I want to address that. Also, he said that he can't think off his head of a single person who's more critical than his threshold of Israel criticism that he wouldn't consider anti-Semitic, and a lot of other stuff. I'm going to unpack it. It was like a 3-hour, I think, space, so I'm obviously not going to cover it all. I just want to cover the most important parts that I found the most interesting and important to what I'm trying to say. So God bless you. Thank you guys for being here. And to those who are asking about other stories, I have a lot of stories kind of on backlog that I want to cover over the last couple of days, but I want to stick to this right now because I do think it's really important, now that stuff's going on in conservative media, to look at it and really identify how right-wing media is being very similar to left-wing media. When they can't out-debate you, they just say you're hateful, you're a hater, hate, 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 and they're being so hypocritical. What Jeremy Boring, in my opinion, is doing would be like if I said all of the hosts at Daily Wire hate black people. I can't name a single conservative commentator in conservative politics that criticizes black people more than I would like them to, that doesn't just hate all black people. Like, that's equivalent to what he's doing. It's absolutely insane. And I'm glad that he entered a space, because 4 or 5 years of, in my opinion, trying to cover up this conversation, and 4 to 5 maybe longer years of them trying to gatekeep this narrative, it's all falling apart with the firing of Candace Owens. Now people are having these conversations, and it's clear to me why they didn't want to have these conversations publicly, because they look stupid, they look fake, because they are stupid and fake. God bless you. Thank you for being here. Show starts now. Give me a thumbs up in the comment if it sounds good. Give it a like for the algorithm. We're on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. Dream Rare Podcast is live.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
Thank you guys for being here. I'm going to look for the chats. Looks all good. Marla, Eddie, Dialogue, McGruff. We got Scruff McGruff here. Is it the real deal? But anyway, jokes aside, let's start what I want to show you. And I have long clips of these. I think I have 3 or 4 minute clips. Just to give you guys a warning, the audio is a little all over the place because it was on an X space and people had different cell phones. So, just make sure that the audio is set right, or else it's going to probably hurt your ears. I apologize. I'm going to play these long clips because since it was on X, I don't think it's copyrighted or I have to like chop them into 30-second segments. I don't like to do that, by the way. I just do it because I'm always getting copyright stricken and they're saying I'm taking intellectual property or whatever. So I don't want that to happen again. But in this first clip, it's so revealing. And the first point I want to make before I let you listen to 4 minutes of it unedited is that when Candace, there was controversy in November. I don't remember over what. Maybe Ben Shapiro and her had a disagreement. Ben thought she was being anti-Semitic and, Candace thought she wasn't. And Jeremy Boring tweeted out and he basically said, I can't even fire Candace Owens, but if I could, I wouldn't, because at the Daily Wire, I just showed it at the beginning, the exact quote, but he's like, we don't tell people what to say. We allow people to have other opinions. Like that's what the Daily Wire is all about. It's a bunch of diverse opinions. Obviously, it's more conservative, but he goes against literally 100% inversion of what he said then and says, I pay people to speak. I pay people to say what I want them to say. And if they don't say what I want them to say, then why would I work with them? He has every right as a business owner to do that. I have no problem with it. I don't think it's even wrong. Like, yeah, I understand. Like, you're not going to just hire. I mean, some people like PBD want to hire Chris Cuomo and be that type of media. Other groups are being conservative or they have a certain angle. There's nothing necessarily wrong with what Jeremy's doing to hire people to say what he wants them to say. But the question is, why did you lie about it 5 months ago and say, oh, they can have different opinions than me? And then snarkily say this time, no, they have to have like similar opinions to me or else why would I pay them to speak if they're not going to say what I want them to say? He's just a total hypocrite and he was lying a couple months ago. I'm glad he's being honest now. And I'm going to walk forward because I have a few clips to play, 4 minutes. You're going to listen to it in total. Everybody has a line. The question is, what is the line and are you being honest with your line? Of course, Daily Wire has a line. Of course, certain people think certain things are hateful. But if you just call everybody racist or sexist or anti-Semitic and you can't define it or describe it or even name a single person that you don't consider anti-Semitic, then it just shows that you're full of shit, which Jeremy Boring and most people at Daily Wire obviously are. There's some great people there, great employees, great staff. It's a beautiful place. I'm not saying that it's horrible. There's a lot of great people there. I'm just saying when it comes to the news hosts and I won't say propaganda, but information they're disseminating, they're not always being honest. So here's him explaining how he only hires who he wants to hire and how off the top of his head, he can't think of a single person that is like overtly critical of Israel that he doesn't consider anti-Semitic. He says, they probably exist. I just can't think of one. It's like, so everyone's anti-Semitic to you, Jeremy? Everyone that doesn't do what you do is anti-Semitic. He'll be like, no, that's not what I said. Well, let's listen to what he said. 4 minutes unedited. Let's do it.
But the Daily Wire is a publication, right? We publish, we curate. I pay people to speak. I'm not just a platform where everybody can kind of build their own account and say the things that they want to say. I pay people, and I'm not going to pay people to say things that go beyond certain lines of what I believe. Why would I do that? I didn't get in this to get rich. I got in it when I first got started. I was doing this for nonprofits. I never thought I'd make more than $100,000. So why would I have done all the things that I've done if I didn't actually have a core set of beliefs? And why would I pay people to say things through the mechanism that I've built that I don't agree with, or at least agree with within a fairly broad sphere? It's not to say that everybody who works for me agrees with me on everything. We employ Michael Knowles, for God's sake. But very broadly speaking, people who I believe that what they believe is within a framework that I also believe.
But don't you, I guess that's the core of what Chief Trumpster, I think, is trying to get. You call Dave Rubin your friend. Dave's nice guy. When asked about Israel's actions in Gaza, that is apparently so contradictory to your own values, you can't name a single person that is not an anti-Semite who would believe that. So it kind of seems
No, that's not fair, Lauren. I can't name a single person who isn't an anti-Semite who does believe that. Isn't the same as saying that I couldn't. Very arguably there is someone out there. I don't know. I'm not like tracking the views of every single person out there to measure them against some standard to figure out if there's anybody that I could broadly align with. But I can't call someone to name right now who I think walks the line.
Do you think I'm anti-Semitic?
I haven't followed exactly what your position on all of this is. So it's a bit of a trick question, obviously.
I don't think it's a trick question.
Can I actually ask what you think anti-Semitism is, Jeremy?
Sure, anti-Semitism is hatred of the Jews.
I know, but everybody says that. But here's the thing: like, I criticize Israel for any number of different reasons. I've criticized them for potentially using Jeffrey Epstein to blackmail American politics. I've criticized them for war crimes in Gaza. I've criticized them for a bunch of different things. And whenever I leverage even that basic criticism, people come at me and they'll accuse me of being a Jew hater, which to me is totally disingenuous, because as a Christian, I love all people. I want to see Jews go to heaven. I want to see them know their Messiah. I don't hate Jews, but people will accuse me of hating them for even asking, questions about Israel or being critical of them. So saying someone hates Jews, like, that doesn't really make sense. Can you get more specific?
Well, I don't know that I can get more specific. That's the definition. The problem when we ask a question like, is it possible for someone to disagree with Israel's actions vis-a-vis Hamas and Gaza and not be an anti-Semite? Well, certainly it's possible. A much harder question is, can I name an example of someone who's done that? That requires two things from me. One, for me to be paying very close attention to what everyone out there thinks, which I have not paid that level of attention to what everyone out there thinks. And second of all, it is just a fact that a great percentage of the people who hate Israel very much because of their hatred of Jews. And so the loudest voices who are upset about Israel in Gaza at the moment are anti-Semites. Doesn't mean that it's not possible to oppose Israel's actions in Gaza without being an anti-Semite. Of course it is. But to say, can I name one of those people? We'd have to look at an example and analyze it together. No, off the top of my head, I can't name it.
So there's 4 or 5 things I want to break down in that clip. And I wrote just little, not the whole thing. You could just see I have a thing here. It's not like I wrote a whole speech. I just made sure I wanted to get these 4 or 5 bullet points to kind of debate what he's saying there. The first thing that I found wild is he can't name, because Lauren, that was Lauren Chen, by the way. She was specific. She said, is there anybody out there that's critical of what Israel's doing in Gaza that you don't consider anti-Semitic? And he goes, I'm not saying it's not possible that someone could criticize what they're doing in Gaza and not be anti-Semitic. I just can't think of one. He can't think of a single person. I mean, let me just think of one. Glenn Greenwald. Glenn Greenwald, I don't think he hates any. I think he is Jewish, actually. I'm not even sure. I think he might be. Maybe people know. He's in my opinion, he's like a left-wing progressive journalist who's banned from America, I believe, because of the Edward Snowden stuff. We don't agree on everything, but I don't think he's hateful. I don't think he hates any country or hates any group of people. He's extremely critical. There's others, but it's like, that's the first name that popped into my head. Jeremy can't name one. So Jeremy's fine with calling people anti-Semitic. And it's like, okay, you're calling everybody anti-Semitic. Everything's anti-Semitic, right, Jeremy? Name one person that's critical of what Israel's doing in Gaza that's not anti-Semitic. There's got to be one, right? And he's like, there's got to be. I just can't think of one. That's pretty wild. It's a great question. Good job, Lauren. Second thing is Jeremy's definition of anti-Semitism. He says it's people who hate Jews is what anti-Semitic means. Means to who? Because here's what I'll say. According to the rabbi that interviewed Candace Owens and debated with her, he said it started 2,000 years ago. I mean, I understand that maybe that's when he thinks the hatred started at the time of Jesus, but that wasn't necessarily his definition. And the real definition that actually matters, not because only one matters and everybody's opinion doesn't matter, but there's one definition that's being passed through law. There's one definition that Trump signed through executive order. There's one definition that Ron DeSantis signed into Florida. There's one definition, and it's the same definition that Kristi Noem signed, Governor Youngkin signed. I'm sure Nikki Haley at some point signed when she was in office. Governor Kemp signed. Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed. They're all signing that definition. So to me, your opinion or your feelings or your idea of what it means or what you think hate means, because liberals think you hate them and whatever, what matters to me is the law that they're passing, because that's the definition that's going to end up in court and possibly end up one day in the Supreme Court as an infringement of the First Amendment, in my opinion, because it's a list of, I believe, 11 phrases or so that is saying way more than than Jeremy's saying. In another clip, I'll show you that Jeremy says he's against speech laws that do that, but he's not, because nobody at his media platform ever talks about it. And if anyone ever figures it out, it seems like they just get kicked out. So he'll be like, you can do that, you can do that. But it's like, that's not the definition. The real definition that matters is being passed through law. It's not just, oh, you hate these people. Because that's another thing too. Even according to Jeremy's definition, that doesn't matter, because it's just his perspective, I guess, an opinion of like what he perceives it as. It's not the law. It's not being passed into legislation. It's just what he says. But in general, like, what do you mean by hate? Because obviously I don't like people that hate good people. That's horrible. I don't like people that hate entire religions or races or groups of people. I don't like that. But the left says Jeremy Boring hates gays. The left probably says Jeremy Boring hates black people. Should we let them say that? Be like, yeah, Jeremy Boring just hates black people. I don't think he does. I don't find him like a hateful person or anything. I don't even know him. Seems like a nice guy. But like, what is that? Can you explain it first? It's like, oh, just people who hate. The left says you hate everything. They say you hate the pharmaceutical industry if you don't want to get a vaccine. They say you hate homosexuality if you think a marriage is between a man and a woman. They think you hate gay people if you don't want 2-year-olds to be transgender and celebrities to dress up their kids in different outfits. Like, everything is hate. Like, what is, some people think the truth is hate. So I understand. I don't like bad people. I don't like bad people on the left or the right. But for Jeremy to say that the definition of anti-Semitism is those who hate this group of people, and it's like, hate is a broad. So and then they said, name one person who's critical of Gaza, what's going on in Gaza. One in the conservative sphere that isn't anti-Semitic. And Jeremy goes, I'm not saying it can exist. I just can't think of one. Like, he doesn't know news people. Like, he hasn't done research. He even said on that stream, the guy who must not be named is Nick Fuentes, because I don't know what happened to him. Like, he was in conservative media years ago before I was even conservative. And, he says they kicked him out. They're always writing smear articles on him. He's like enemy number one to Daily Wire and Jeremy Boring. But it's like, he even said that, Jeremy said, I don't have the clip, but he said he watches Nick all the time and thinks he's like really talented. So it's like, you have enough time to watch a guy you hate and you know a lot about him, but you can't name, like, you haven't worked in conservative media for 7 years. It's not like, I don't even watch content that much anymore. I like MMA and mixed martial arts, but it's like, I could think of like 5 people off the top of my head that criticize Israel but aren't anti-Semitic, and then I could feed you some that I think are too hateful or just like their vibe and approach is not my style. But this is my perspective as well. When I talk about issues, I don't use these words anymore because I think they're cop-outs. Racist, sexist, xenophobic, climate denier, conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer. Like, if I say, hey, I don't want to get the COVID vaccine, they could say, you hate Big Pharma. No, I don't. You're an anti-vaxxer. No, I'm not. I mean, what does that mean? Like, you have to be pro or anti something. Are you anti orange juice? If you don't drink orange juice, do you hate it? Do you not? Or like, it's just insane. Everybody says everything's hateful. So if you can't describe what you're talking about racially without using the word racist, you're probably stupid. Men and women are different biologically. They have different roles. Women, I almost said men, nowadays they do, but women carry babies, they're more elegant. Most of the time, like, there's pros and cons to both genders. And then there's anomalies where they're just, like Caitlin Clark is a basketball player who's female. I mean, LeBron James would beat the shit out of her, not physically, but in a game. However, Caitlin Clark is more interesting than other men at playing basketball just because she's got an aura about her. She's an anomaly. Although it's great for women's sports, that will be ruined by transgender sports, because then biologically born men will just beat the crap out of them in sports as well, which is already starting to happen. But anyway, it's like, if you can't explain what you're talking, it's easy to just be like, oh, you're just sexist. Oh, you're just racist. Oh, you're just anti-Semitic. What does anti-Semitic mean? Oh, it means you hate these people. Can you name one person that doesn't? No, but they exist, but I don't know who they are. So that's what Jeremy Boring is. He's just, I'm not going to say a left winger because he's conservative, but he's that same type of ideology where it's like, just say they hate people, say it's hate. Because I don't really know how to describe it, and then tell everybody I have a free speech platform where Candace is allowed to disagree with me and Ben, and then she gets kicked out, and then all of a sudden he's now admitting, like, no, I pay people to talk, I pay people to do what I want them to do, and if they don't do what I do, I'll just fire or get rid of them or what. He didn't say that exactly, but you heard the clip. Like, not paying people to stray from my beliefs. And at one point he admitted that he would never sign somebody to Daily Wire that thinks that what Israel's doing is a genocide. That's his right. I'm not saying he has to, but just be honest about that. Another thing is, I guess maybe I'll play the other clip because there's this guy Sovereign Bra. He talks about the anti-Semitism speech laws. I mean, he says a lot of stuff, but he talks about the anti-Semitism speech laws, and I just want to show you that Jeremy Boring completely just glosses over that and acts like he never even said it and doesn't answer it at all. And I want to talk about that later because that really, to those who lie and say I'm hateful and stuff, like that's the cop out. Like if I challenge the race narrative of the left, they just say I hate people, but nobody even believes it, so it doesn't matter. If I challenge big pharma, they say I hate the science. That's not true. If I challenge the gender roles that are being inverted by Satan, I mean, modern day liars, or like liberals or whatever they call themselves. I'm not saying they're all of Satan, but it's like just inverted reality that they're pushing. If you push back on that, they say you hate everybody or you hate this, or you hate that. So I'm not like new to being told I'm being hateful when I'm not. It's just the right does it on this topic way more. But I really want to explain there's two things that I'm really trying to accomplish today. And there's a reason I keep talking about this topic. One, without the First Amendment, America is toast. And they are passing not Jeremy's definition of what thank God they're not pushing his definition because he doesn't even have a definition. Like, what's my definition of racism? It's like, oh, people who hate races. It's like, what do you mean by hate? Like, I don't know. It's like, I understand what hate means, but it's like, a lot of people don't. So if you just pass a law that says you hate that person, like don't give anyone that power. The left thinks you hate everything if you don't listen to them. They'll throw you in a gulag and say that you hate, humanity if you want to be free. Like there's crazy people out there that think that the truth is hateful. So it's not a real definition to say something so vague like Jeremy said, but what really matters is the laws that they're passing through Congress, through executive order that are not that are specific phrases that Ben Shapiro tweets out. I'm going to play this clip. It's 4 minutes long. Jeremy completely ignores the question about whether, what he thinks about the anti-Semitism speech laws, the IHRA laws. And then at the end, I also want to show you that Matt Walsh used to talk about this stuff. He used to write it. And I'm going to read one of his older blogs, not as a smear piece or anything. I like Matt Walsh. He's cool. Just to show you because, he even responded to me on Twitter. I like Matt Walsh. I think he's a net positive guy. It's just he knows, and Ben knows that this article exists. But if he came out with the same vibe that he wrote in this article, he literally talked about Jewish lobby and how Israel, like he was saying all the stuff that Daily Wire now says is anti-Semitism. If he came out and said this, he would probably get fired because Jeremy admitted he would never work with somebody who crosses that threshold. So it's just interesting where Matt Walsh would be like, I'm not a shill. And I'm not saying you are. It's just like, you're free to go at the homosexuals hard. You're free to go at BLM hard and black people. And you're free to talk about reparations. But if you ever talk about this topic at 1/8 of the, energy that you go at every other topic, if you believe what you did in 2013 and you went as hard as you do at other topics, they would kick you out. And Matt Walsh knows that. And Jeremy Boring knows that. So it's like, these people are just playing stupid, in my opinion, for money. But here's the second clip of this guy named Sovereign Bra asking Jeremy Boring about the speech laws. But it's 4-minute clip. I just want to get it in full context because it's interesting.
And of course, I'm sure you'd probably disagree with this, but my perception of the Daily Wire is that in many ways it is an Israel first company. And the reason why I say that is because, like I said, I saw the ADL hit piece come out against Candace Owens, aligning her with Nick Fuentes. Boom, 24 hours later, she's sacked from the Daily Wire. This happens after she's criticizing the nefarious ways in which some Jews use their power. She's saying things that are considered quote unquote anti-Semitic. Boom, she gets fired from the Daily Wire. I see that happen. I see this criticism of these Christ is King statements being labeled anti-Semitic. I see a lot of noise being made about these things. But as a Christian who wants to see a company like Daily Wire, which is at the vanguard of, general conservative thought in America, as a Christian who wants to see a company like you guys stand up for America first values, I see you putting more attention towards this quote unquote anti-Semitism than, for example, the gross violation of our First Amendment rights in America with all of these anti-Semitic speech laws, right? I brought this up earlier in the conversation. This has been a theme of this particular space tonight, Jeremy. As an American, I see the fact that Jewish people are legally speaking, the most protected group of people in America. More than half the states in America have laws banning criticism of Israel on behalf of businesses, banning free speech where people are criticizing or boycotting the Israeli government. There were these laws that were just passed in South Dakota that make it illegal to make anti-Semitic statements saying that Jews are they're loyal to Israel, more loyal to Israel than America. They've made it illegal, according to the IHRA standard of anti-Semitism, to say that Jews had Christ killed, which is, as you're a Christian, I'm a Christian, we both know that's simply a biblical fact, that the Jewish Pharisees had Jesus Christ killed. That's not disputable, like that's just a fact. As a Christian and as an American, I see free speech in America completely under attack. The Jewish lobby has a tremendous amount of power to do this, to try and make this happen. I think it's anti-Christian values, it's anti-biblical, and it's also anti-American. And for a conservative company, to me, it's like, okay, you guys are making a lot of noise about this quote-unquote anti-Semitism, but you guys aren't really making much noise about the fact that free speech in America is completely under assault by Jewish people. And I'm kind of wondering, like, why? Like, it seems like you guys are an Israel first country, not an America first country. What do you have to say to that?
Well, one thing I would say is that no one, to my knowledge, at the Daily Wire is a citizen of any country other than America. I think that my track record, or the people who I've worked with in my career, from Bill Whittle, who was mentioned earlier, all the way through Matt Walsh today, who opposes essentially all foreign aid, including to Israel. I think that it's difficult to make an argument that we aren't for our country, or that we're not pro our country, or that the vast majority of our energies don't go into fighting the left and building the future in this country. I think that probably a more accurate thing, I believe, is that because you have a particular viewpoint about American involvement in Israel, or Jewish involvement in our national politics, that you hear our feelings about Israel. And by our, I probably mean mine and Ben's most prominently, since Matt Walsh's is very different, or even Michael Knowles's is very different. I think that you hear that resonate more loudly, but the actual truth is that the vast majority of our efforts go into trying to protect our country, and trying to change the politics in our country, trying to fight for our culture. And I say our because Ben Shapiro is also an American citizen. Ben Shapiro is also, he spent every single day of his life, other than a brief stint at Harvard Law, he spent every single day of his life in Southern California until very recent years when we moved the company. So, in some ways, I think a man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest. And that's probably a bit of what we're dealing with. The idea that we're Israel first, though, is just not. That's not.
It's wild that Jeremy says, I think a man hears what he wants to hear sometimes, which is, in my view, exactly what he did there, because he completely ignored the question, like completely. I understand sovereign bra, God bless him. He worded certain things. I think he said country instead of company. It's fine. I think I mess up every time I listen to my streams back, which is not often anymore. I always make mistakes, and I'm like, I said Trump had to give up like $500. I meant like 500 million or 200 or whatever I did. I said I made a mistake. I was like, darn it. So it's like, he worded certain things harshly that I'm sure people would consider hate speech. And the way he put it in certain ways was like, maybe, some people would be like, oh my gosh, he put it in such a hateful way. But that's like saying Trump, oh my gosh, he said it hatefully at the border. It's like, did you listen to what the like meat of the argument was, or did you just get offended by like a certain way that it was said? But anyway, the meat of the question, I know it took a while because he's talking about a lot of things, was why you're always making a huge stink, you, Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, about anti-Semitism. You guys are complaining about that all the time. The hate speech, the hate speech. It's all hate. It's hate. Everything's hate speech. Why aren't you making a big fuss over the IHRA speech rules that are being passed through government that are an infringement on the First Amendment. That was the question. I don't know if you guys heard. That was the question. He completely blew it off as if it was never said, and then said, sometimes a man hears what he wants to hear. Kind of like you just literally did there. I know these people aren't so dumb. Trump passed it through executive order. DeSantis passed it in Florida. Kristi Noem passed it. It's been, like he said, there's BDS protest laws. And I'm not an Israeli protester, and I'm not a Palestinian protester. I'm not out in the streets waving flags and yelling at people and calling each other names. It's not my style. It's not my thing. With that being said, I do think it's an infringement on the First Amendment to say that in America, you could protest the government of America, but you can't protest a foreign government. In America, you could speak about your own religion however you want, but you can't talk about another one. In America, you know, everyone on every media company could say things about your ethnicity, but you're not even allowed to defend yourself. You're not even allowed to read certain biblical quotes and have a conversation about the death of Jesus without it being considered anti-Semitism by law. That's the thing that Jeremy's passing. Yeah, you have an opinion, you have a definition. This is what you think. He goes, this is what it is. Jeremy, you're not dense. Talk about the IHRA hate speech phrases that are being passed through law. I don't have the clip, but later in it, he says, I'd be against infringements on the First Amendment. And then Sovereign Bra was like based or something, you know, like, oh, he really, it does, but they never say it. In fact, they box everybody out who will talk about it and, you know, get rid of hosts, I think, that do talk about it. I could talk about this more, which I will, but I want to show you this article that Matt Walsh wrote before he was at Daily Wire, and I want to explain myself. I like Matt Walsh. This is not like a gotcha moment. We all have moments. When I was younger, I was more liberal or progressive, or really just, some would say, a conspiracy theorist at one point because I didn't like either party. So I'm not like, I have rap videos from 2010, 2011, 2013, even a couple of years ago that I'm like, why did I say those lyrics? So this isn't, I'm not doing this as like a scummy gotcha moment on Matt Walsh. I like Matt Walsh. I think he's a good guy. There's nothing, you know, I don't really have much negative to say about him, except he's wrong about the moon landing. No, I'm just kidding. But jokes aside, this isn't like a gotcha moment to attack his character. It's just to show that Matt knows these things, but he would never say these things that he wrote here again, or else he'd probably get fired, because Jeremy admitted this type of energy will probably get you at least not hired from Daily Wire, because there's a certain threshold that's really important to Jeremy. And if you cross that, I think if Candace said that America was genociding people, Jeremy wouldn't have even cared. That's why they get accused of being Israel first. It's not because of anti-Semitism. It's because if Candace came out and had some crazy opinion about America, even if it was like so out of left field, I don't believe they would have fired her. They would have been like, Daily Wire, free speech, we believe in it, like they did 5 months ago. But the second she crosses Jeremy's threshold about a foreign country, he's like, I can't push that out. Okay. So this is why I'm playing this from Matt Walsh. It's not that Ben doesn't know this article exists. Of course he does. Matt responded to me. He goes, you know, Ben knows that this article exists. I'm not bringing it up as a gotcha moment to try to get him fired. I'm just being honest. I'm saying if you repeated what you wrote here now and made it a thing on a stream, your life would get very difficult. Your finances would probably be in trouble, and your job security would be in trouble. I know that. Jeremy knows that. Matt knows that. Now, let me read in Matt's words what he thinks of the Israel lobby, or what he even references here, talking about how they call everybody anti-Semitic who talks about this lobby. Matt knows. He just doesn't talk about it anymore because he knows his job would be at risk, which it would. Here's Matt Walsh's article. The title is Bow Before Israel Unless You're an Anti-Semite. Matt Walsh once wrote this. Obama has nominated former Republican Senator Chuck Hagel to be our new Secretary of Defense. Yeah, I know you're thinking, Jan, I'm right there with you. After all, our foreign policy has been unmitigated catastrophe for many years, and I doubt it'll change as long as this bumbling Botox Dr. Evils are running the show. Still, I'm contractually obliged to care about this stuff, so bear with me as I give it a shot. The Hagel pick is being called controversial. Shocking. I realize our lives are apparently so empty and miserable that we have to make everything into a controversy just to give us something to talk about. In fact, I think our obsession with the controversy itself is rather controversial. Let's argue about it for a few days. So why has Chuck Hagel become the latest outrage du jour? Well, apparently, he has been pretty harsh towards Israel. And by harsh towards Israel, I mean he was once walking in the street with Prime Minister Netanyahu after a rainstorm, and he didn't lay down prostrate in a puddle so that Netanyahu could walk on top of him so as to getting avoided to sainted feet wet. That's all it takes to be labeled as anti-Israel nowadays. Here are Hagel's actual controversial remarks that have been enough to make him the 21st century Hitler. I'm not an Israeli senator. I'm a United States senator. Gasp, shock, outrage, anti-Semite. On another occasion, he hatefully growled, the Jewish lobby intimidates a lot of people here. Scandal, hate crime, arrest the man. Ironically, the reaction to his, quote, Jewish lobby comment actually proves this point rather effectively. And what exactly is the problem with what he said? Are we now denying that a Jewish lobby exists? There's a lobby for everyone and everything. There's a Christian lobby, a Muslim lobby, a gay lobby, an old people lobby. Even the buildings have lobbies. Lobbies, aside from the architectural structure, are business of intimidating and bribing and buying. It's what they do. But anytime a politician has the gumption to point out to the peanut gallery, has tossed him out of swinging doors like a drunk guy in an old Western movie. We're ridiculous, all of us. What the hell is wrong with us? We punish people for making truthful statements and then turn around and whine, why won't anyone tell the truth? Because they don't want to be tarred and feathered by a violent mob of self-contradicting nitwits. That's why. Only people who have never told the truth into a microphone don't understand why people hesitate to tell the truth through a microphone. It's astoundingly stupid that anyone would attack Hagel for simply stating that he's not an Israeli senator and his prime loyalty is to the United States. Shouldn't they all say that? So Matt Walsh said in this article, of course there's a Jewish lobby. Yet in modern society, the same thing that he wrote then is happening now. If you even utter those two words together, I guarantee you'll end up, and you have a big audience, you'll end up in the newspaper. They'll publish your full name. They'll call you an anti-Semite. They'll smear you. They'll try to go through all your tweets and make a compilation to say, oh my gosh, look how hateful you are because you said the word Jewish lobby or Israeli lobby or suggested that there is a lobby. Matt Walsh still knows what he wrote now. That's just what happened to Candace Owens. It happens to everyone. It's been happening since 2019. I know from my friends who work in corporate media that I've been blacklisted since 2019 because somebody that I don't even know retweeted me. You know, they said, oh, because he retweeted you, that means you're guilty. It's like Ben Shapiro retweets a bunch of people I hate all the time, but I don't do I'm not like 5 years old where I'm like, well, because you retweeted him, that means you're responsible for everything he's ever said or done and you're hateful. Like that's like what a clown does, but that's what they do. So Matt Walsh could play stupid all he wants. Get that money, Matt Walsh. Get that money, boy. You know you're on a leash. You know you can't say what you wrote there. Yeah, they know it exists, but why don't you do a whole video on that? See what happens. See if your name doesn't end up in 50,000 articles. See if they don't smear you as an anti-Semite. See if they don't start pressuring your sponsors. See if they don't start, your own media network starts turning on you. Of course they would. He knows that. I know that. Jeremy knows that. So he never talks about it. I don't talk about it that much. How am I a shill? Why won't you say what you wrote there? Is it different now? Has it changed? Is it completely out the wall? No, it's the same thing. And the thing is, Daily Wire is part of it. Ben Shapiro's part of it. They dunk on you as well. It's not left-wing media. It's some left-wing media, but it's right-wing media. They'll do the exact same thing they did to Donald Trump, which is, when they wanted to make Trump look bad, they planted a story in the left and said, I don't know who did it, an anonymous intelligent guy or whatever. And they say, Donald Trump, there's reports of an anonymous source from this intelligence community said that Donald Trump, got spanked on the butt in Russia in 1495 or whatever, what they were doing. And then it'll be like, well, Washington Post reported that an anonymous person reported that. And then all of a sudden it ends up in every media. It's like a coordinated hit job where it's like 50,000 people just wrote it because one anonymous source said this or said that. It's the same thing right-wing media does if you ever call out that lobby. They plant the story, and then it ends up in 50 different media things. And if you say that it's even happening, they just call you anti-Semitic. They've labeled me an anti-Semitic podcast, an anti-Semitic YouTuber, to the point where I believe they want to use that against me for the rest of my life. It's like I'm just going to go over some of my accomplishments. I'm not bragging, but it's like I'm a hip hop artist. I have tens of thousands of streams. I played at Sturgis in 2020 when the country was locked down. It was the biggest festival in the country that defied lockdowns, which is pretty cool. And I headlined or co-headlined an event with the Smash Mouth. I was with Trap, but rest in peace, the lead singer Smash Mouth. The dude died of like liver failure or something, and he was definitely drunk when I saw him. But anyway, it's like, I have 1 billion views. There's a lot of, and I'm not saying I need like somebody to suck up to me, but it's like I've done a lot of different things and I never get talked about in conservative media until I talk about things they don't want me to talk about. And then it's like, here's what you are, right? You're not a hip hop artist. You're not a news analyst. You're not an American citizen. You're not like a kid who came from nothing and made a name for himself. You're not someone who accomplished 2 million followers with no budget, essentially. Like, you're an anti-Semitic YouTube channel. That's what you are. It's like if Ben only came up in the media as like a racist YouTube channel, it's just annoying. And also in this podcast, Jeremy said, I don't always make money on my people. He's like, I've lost millions of dollars. He's like, I've spent millions of dollars on advertisements on all my hosts. So he's spending millions of dollars. Dang, that's kind of crazy that I'm competing with all of the people you're spending millions of dollars. You know how much I spent, Jeremy? $0. You know why they would never hire me? It's not because I'm not better than them. I'm running circles around more than half of his staff now with $0. Keep spending millions of dollars on Michael Knowles and Andrew Clavins. You might as well spend it in the trash. How much, God knows how much money they spend on Michael Knowles and Andrew Clavin, and still nobody gives a crap about them. It's pretty wild. It's like, I don't need that. I'm just saying, it's like, I've always known the threshold. The threshold is Matt Walsh can't say what he wrote back then or else he's done. Candace Owens can't say what she did or else she's done. She's just got to sit there and let a bunch of people just talk shit about her and smear her, and she's not allowed to respond. It's like, that's how you get there. You know what I'm saying? You either play dumb or you play along. I'm glad he admitted it. I don't have the clip, but he said, I would never hire somebody that considers what's going on in Gaza a genocide. There's his line. I mean, that the line moves because he says anti-Semitism is hatred, but he can't fully describe it. So he couldn't even name one single person who disagreed with him on a topic that wasn't anti-Semitic. He just thinks everyone's anti-Semitic that disagrees with him, which is why he's an idiot, which is why he never debates, because he'd lose every debate. It would be like, why do you believe what you believe in? Because you're racist. Who's not racist that disagrees with you? Everyone. It's like, that's his vibe. It's like, imagine if I said, this is my line when it comes to race, and everybody who goes further is racist. It's not true. Everyone who goes further than me, like, it's not like they're all it's just like some people care about certain things more and they're passionate about it and knowledgeable about it, and some people suck. But I'm not going to just sit there and say that I can't name a single person that's not racist. That means you think almost everyone that disagrees with you is racist. Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro have been this. They're the ultimate hypocrite, ultimate double standards. Ben Shapiro tweets the anti-Semitism IHRA laws on his Twitter and word for word, like copy paste them, essentially, not completely, but almost identical, as like, oh, you can't say that anyone has more loyalty to Israel, or, you know, that's anti-Semitism to say that someone of my ethnicity has loyalty to Israel. Didn't Jeremy just say he wouldn't hire someone who wasn't at that threshold of loyalty to Israel? He literally said it in the podcast or in the X thing. It's like, I don't care. I don't care that Ben thinks that way, and I don't care that Jeremy thinks that way. It's just like, then you'll say that it's anti-Semitism to say that Ben has loyalty. It's the craziest thing ever. Like, does anybody listen to Ben and think, oh, that guy has no loyalty to Israel? He hates him. He can't stand him. It's like, no, of course he loves Israel, and that's fine. Just don't say it's anti-Semitism to say that it's happening. And for the record, I mean, this is probably going to piss some people off, that are quote unquote on my side or whatever, but I wouldn't even, like, you haven't heard me say what they're doing in Gaza is a genocide. I know that's what he said. I haven't said that because I think eventually it could be a genocide. I do think that they've killed tens of thousands of civilians, but is that a genocide? I don't think so at this point. It could be if they wipe out more people, and it goes on and on. Like, it's like what's going on in Armenia. They said they were genocided in the past. I'm just not calling it that. I don't consider it that yet. I think it could get to that point, but killing tens of thousands of civilians, I just say that because that's what happened. Obviously, they've gotten some operatives in that, but in getting the operatives, they just are killing tens of thousands of civilians and kids. So I just say that because I don't like using words that are broad and that, it's like, oh, you said that, so this is that, and this is anti-Semitic, and that's a genocide. It's like everyone does that. It's like, I'm just trying to be specific about what's going on and label it as you want, whether it's like, but I wouldn't necessarily use that label. That's just but I don't think everyone who does use that label is anti-Semitic. And I don't think that everyone who doesn't use that label is a good person. Like, that's not really how it works. And that's not how words and discussion and, people's spirit is, but that's what it is for Jeremy, and that's what it is at the Daily Wire. So God bless him. I wish him luck. It's just, I'm glad everybody's seeing what conservative media really is. I've said this since 2019. They'll call you anti-Semitic for saying that there are Zionist donors or donors that believe in Israel, which is 100% true. Everybody knows it. Like Matt Walsh wrote that he'd never say again or else he'd probably get fired. Of course there's that lobby. There's a lobby for everything. You can't say it. Why can't you say that one, but you can say the other ones? It's crazy. But anyway, Of course there is. And all the people in conservative media know it. But then the media will come and say you're anti-Semitic, and people like Jeremy and Ben will either say nothing to defend you or start piling on you and be like, we are not about that. Yeah, you are. Everyone knows it. It's like, do you think that someone should ask Charlie Kirk, okay? Since it's apparently hate speech to say that this is happening, ask Charlie Kirk, has anyone ever donated more than $1 million to Turning Point USA that is a proud Zionist and a Israel firster that would pull the money if you ever said what Candace said or ever said what Matt Walsh wrote or ever, like, you know what I'm saying? Like if Charlie Kirk came out and read as his own opinions as a speech, that Matt Walsh article where it says Jewish lobby and all this stuff, do you think Charlie Kirk would be in good standing with some of his donors? Is that hate speech to say? I'm not saying everybody who donates to Turning Point is that, but of course there's millions of dollars probably going into it. And I know, but it's just like, you can't even talk about it. And that's why everybody plays dumb. They have to play dumb. It's the same thing that Matt wrote about. It's the same thing that's going on now. If you say, I'm America first, not Israel first, as an American politician, you get in trouble. You get in more trouble than if you say you hate America. Like the press likes you more if you're like, America sucks, than if you say, I'm trying to serve America, not that country. And then all of a sudden the press turns against you. And then all of a sudden, right-wing and left-wing media turns against you. And then all of a sudden the politicians turn against you. And they write these resolutions in Congress to shut you up. Like, here's a resolution to tell you to keep your mouth shut. That means nothing, but we're going to sign it. And we all sign it. And like everybody in Congress signs it except for Thomas Massie and 7 Democrats. And it's like, is it, it's just so obvious. But I'm going to wrap this up, maybe read a few comments, and then I'm going to keep it moving. I think that Jeremy Boring is incredibly brave and admirable for going into an extreme with people that he disagrees with people that are critical of him. There were multiple people there. Some were being obnoxious about it, some were being respectful about it, but either way, it's bold to jump into the lion's den with people that don't like your company and you and don't believe you. That's not everyone would do that. I'm glad he did that. With that being said, these were my takeaways. I mean, there were Am I back? Sorry. Is everything good? I don't know. Did I get kicked off something? Give me a thumbs up if I'm here. So I was just about to name them. Thumbs up. No, I'm here. Thumbs up if I'm still here. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know why it cut me out. Thumbs up. It could just be the internet connection. Let me see. I'm back. Okay. So here's all my takeaways from what I saw from Jeremy about what matters, not about petty stuff. 1, he defined anti-Semitism as people who hate that group, and then said that he couldn't name a single person critical of what's going on in Gaza who wasn't anti-Semitic. And he can't name a single person that has a differing opinion on that topic of him that isn't hateful and hates an entire group. And he said that people who hate that group generally are against that country. Of course, it's just like, if you disagree with Africa, you're racist. It's like, not necessarily, but yeah, if you really hate Africans, then yeah, you would be in that crowd just by default. Like that's like the statement he's making is just so stupid and obvious, but it's just like, in general, it's like, okay, I understand what you're saying. So just name off the top of your head, name one person who disagrees with you that's not anti-Semitic. He eventually named Mike Cernovich like later. It took him like 30 minutes. I don't consider that like real. Like, I follow Mike. I like Mike. I like his tweets. I'm just saying, like, that's the only person that you could think of, but whatever. That was very revealing to me. Also, second thing was the speech laws were brought up to him, said, this has been passed through South Dakota. It's an infringement on the First Amendment. Why do you make such a big stink about hate speech, but you don't talk about the hate speech laws? Anyone could have worded it however they want, but that question, as far as I'm concerned, has never been asked to Jeremy or anybody at Daily Wire. And since 2019, I've been waiting for someone to ask that question. I know I could beat Ben Shapiro on a debate on this topic. I know I could beat Matt Walsh on a debate on this. Anybody at Daily Wire, I could beat in a debate. That's why they don't debate it. And I felt like they've been boxing out this conversation for 7 years now, 5 years now. So for someone to ask Jeremy and say, listen, It's a great question. It took a long time to get it out, but everyone was quiet and let him speak. So that was awesome. He's like, the gist of the question was like, you make such a big stink about what you consider hate speech and hate, but you never talk about the hate speech laws. Why? And then Jeremy proceeds for talking for 2 minutes and not mentioning it at all. It's like a total blackout. I know he knows. Of course he knows. How could you not know? I always thought maybe Matt Walsh, I wonder why Matt Walsh, it's not that he has to agree with me, but he just doesn't talk about it that much. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't take like a huge pro-Israel stance, and he doesn't take like a huge pro-America stance when it comes to the speech laws for Israel and stuff like that. I'm not asking Matt Walsh to agree with me. I don't really care. Just be honest and make a point that makes sense, and I'll be like, oh, that's fair. With that being said, he never talks about it. Now I know why, because he knows what's going on, but he knows talking about it will get him fired. Another thing that I took from this is, Jeremy said he pays his people millions of dollars, which is interesting. It makes me feel better about myself that I've been able to compete with them with pretty much no budget. His definition of anti-Semitism is not the definition being passed through law, yet he says that that's what it is. He goes, it's not my definition. That's what it is. That's not what's being passed through law. He claimed on that podcast he disagrees with any sort of speech laws or anti-protest laws, yet he won't admit that that's the definition that the State Department, that the government's going with. So I would say this, and then I'll read a few comments. I mean, I'm not going to read like ignorant or wild comments, free speech or whatever, but I'm not like censoring you. It's just like ask a question or say something like valid and I'll read it. Don't act like you're like 5 years old. But anyway, I think to somebody that Jeremy's real, he's well-spoken, seems like a nice guy. I think if you're not fully paying attention and you listen to him go in that chat, you might come away and be like, oh yeah, he's being really honest. It's like, I don't think so. He said that he only hires people that push his opinions. And if they cross the threshold of his opinions, that they can't work there, essentially, that there's no point in him paying someone to disagree with him on these topics. I'm not saying he's a bad he's not a bad guy for admitting that that's what he's doing. He's has every right to do that. But that's not what he said 4 months ago. I'm not talking about 50 years ago. 4 months ago, he said, I'm not paying people to agree with me. We're paying people to it's okay that Candace disagrees with me and Ben Shapiro. Like, we're platforming her to post her opinions. And he specifically said, if it doesn't cross the threshold of the law and it's not like so foul that it's illegal, we'll let her speak. That's not true. He lied. I know they've been lying for 5 years. So it's okay to only hire people to push your opinions. It makes total sense. Just stop lying about it. You just literally lied about it in November. You understand? That's the point. I'm going to play that clip again because a lot of people were not here at the beginning, and I played that at the beginning. I'm not going to play the whole thing, or maybe I will play the whole thing. Sorry about that. I'm going to just run the intro again. It has other parts to it, but I just want people who, because at the beginning it was a couple hundred, now it's over 1,000. Listen to what he says in the chat last night and listen to what he wrote. He's fine to say what he said recently. It's just not what he told people. So let's just be real about it.
The loudest voices who are upset about Israel in Gaza at the moment are anti-Semites. Doesn't mean that it's not possible to oppose Israel's actions in Gaza without being an anti-Semite. Of course it is. But to say, can I name one of those people? We'd have to look at an example and analyze it together. No, off the top of my head, I can't name an example. But the Daily Wire is a publication, right? We publish, we curate. I pay people to speak. I'm not just a platform where everybody can kind of build their own account and say the things that they want to say. I pay people, and I'm not going to pay people to say things that go beyond certain lines of what I believe. Why would I do that?
Just a few months ago, the CEO of Daily Wire, who just said that, said, in my current capacity, I cannot fire Candace Owens. That's something Ben and I have in common since he is also not an executive in the company and cannot hire or fire people. But even if we could, we would not fire Candace because of another thing we have in common, a desire not to regulate the speech of our hosts even when we disagree with them. Candace is paid to give her opinion, not mine or Ben's. Unless those opinions run afoul of the law or she violates the terms of her contract in some way, her job is secure and she is welcome at Daily Wire. This proves to be a complete and total lie, as you can hear here.
But the Daily Wire is a publication, right? We publish, we curate. I pay people to speak. I'm not just a platform where everybody can kind of build their own account and say the things that they want to say. I pay people, and I'm not going to pay people to say things that go beyond certain lines of what I believe. Why would I do that?
I pay people. I pay people. I pay people. I don't pay people to go beyond the lines of what I think. I don't pay people for that. Okay, then why did you just tweet a few months ago? We won't fire Candace Owens because one thing we have in common is a desire to not regulate the speech of our hosts, even when we disagree with them. That's the part. I don't care who likes Israel, this, that, like, that's not my problem. Until the First Amendment was infringed upon, I never even thought about this topic. It meant nothing to me. It's not like it's nothing, but it's like, I don't just like run around and like look, I'm like, well, let me talk about Afghanistan today or Uzbekistan, or, they always say that, like, why are you talking about this country, not this country? It's like, well, did Uzbekistan pass Uzbekistani hate speech laws in America under the guise of hate, and then every right-wing media host just tells me I'm hateful when I talk about it and blacklist me? If they did that, I talk about Uzbekistan just as much. The reason I talk about this country more is because those are the laws being passed in our government. That's just the truth. So that's the point that I want people, before I read questions, is like, Jeremy's not a bad guy for only hiring hosts that agree with him and Ben, but he just said a couple months ago that he doesn't do that, and he hired Candace to speak her opinions. No, he hired Candace to be essentially a meat puppet for his opinions, just like, Prager and all these people. It's like, you could be black and have their opinion on foreign policy in Israel, but if you don't, they'll just find someone else black to do it, or they'll fire you and say that you're anti-Semitic the same way the left says that Candace is racist. Like, it's the same thing. So it's like, just be honest about that. And he finally did yesterday. He's like, I would never hire somebody too critical of Israel. It's like, I told people that in 2019. I'm not asking people to run around and be critical of them. I'm just saying, like, that's their line, and they're not admitting it. They finally did. Oh no, we want people to disagree with us. No, you don't. I pay people to agree with me. We know. Thank you for admitting it. That's my takeaway. Also, that he couldn't name, like, they're so quick to call people anti-Semites and anti-Semitism. They have a really hard time defining it. None of the definitions add up, and everybody gets mad at you when you disagree with the definition. His definition, the rabbi's definition, the law that's being passed through legislation's definition, they're all different definitions, all three of them. None of them say the same thing, yet if you mention that, they just like act like you're being hateful. It's like, just agree with me. And I don't even know what religion or race Jeremy is. Is he Jewish? Is he not? Is he Christian? I have no idea. I don't really care, to be honest. It doesn't matter to me. It's just like, it's like sometimes people are like, you can't say that if you're not this race. It's like, okay, it's like, is Jeremy even that ethnicity or religion? I don't think he is, but he might be. I'm not even sure. It's like, is he allowed to disagree with the rabbi? Is he allowed to disagree with the HRA speech laws? Like, is he right, or who's right? But everyone just looks at you and just calls you anti-Semitic if you ask. You're like, which of these three definition is the definition that's right? And they're like, oh, that's anti-Semitic to ask that question. You're like, okay. You're like, I just want to know. But I don't go off of what anyone, it's the same thing with like a contract. If you sign a contract with a media company, if you sign a contract with anyone, and especially if you sign I come from, before I did this, I came from music industry. Like, I'm not saying I was connected, because I wasn't, because I always turned down the deals. I have friends that I met along the way, but in general, it's like, I always knew since I was 19 years old, I got offered major contracts, distributing, management, labels interested in signing me to deals. It's not what they tell you in the meeting. It's what's in the contract. So when it comes to anti-Semitism, I'm not going by what this person says, or what Candace did, or what Nick Fuentes did, or what Ben Shapiro did, or what this person said that they did, or this person retweeted that person, or this person likes this person. So that I'm going off of the law definition, the same way as I'm not going off of what people are saying in music contracts. It's like, the definition that actually matters is not friend of a friend of a friend, guilt by association, blacklist them forever because someone retweeted them. It's the law, and all the laws are the same. They're going off the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism that was created between 1914 and 1916, I believe, organized as a list of hate speech phrases by the IHRA in Budapest, I think it says, according to the State Department. So they come up with these laws, and then Trump, DeSantis, they're all passing those laws. Those are the laws, the IHRA. If you want to know what the anti-Semitism hate speech laws are, IHRA, International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, created. That's what's posted to the State Department website. That's what's being signed into legislation. It's not what Jeremy says. It's not what Ben says. It's not what everyone says. That's what it is. So that's what I go off of. And that's why they're calling people anti-Semitic all the time, because according to the laws that they're passing, technically they're right. Like, for example, they called Trump anti-Semitic. Like, what does that mean? Trump is like super pro-Israel. He's gotten like Zionist awards. You know what I'm saying? He has Jewish family through his daughter. Like, Trump is probably, if I were to define anti-Semitism, Trump is one of the least anti-Semitic people that I've seen in recent history. There's nothing anti-Semitic about him, if you're being honest about what the word should mean. But if you go by what the definition of anti-Semitism is through law, Trump has multiple times broken the anti-Semitism hate speech IHRA laws. How? Multiple times. I'll give you an example. One time he said he thinks that Israel should literally own Congress at one point. And, he's upset that there's a few Democrats that are against Israel or that don't vote with everything that Israel wants. And Trump doesn't like that. So Trump is so pro-Israel that he literally wants Israel to control Congress. And he claims, not saying it's true, but he claims that it used to be that way and now it's not. Even though if you look at the legislation, still 95% of Congress is voting with Israel. So it's not even really that true, but whatever. Depending on what bill you look at. Anyway, he broke an anti-Semitism hate speech rule because one of them says you're not allowed to say that Jewish people control banking, media, have political hierarchy or whatever. That's one of the rules. Like, Trump isn't anti-Semitic, but he actually is, because he passed rules and hate speech laws himself, and he violates his own hate speech laws. He's an idiot or a useful idiot. I don't know. Maybe he's not stupid, but I don't know what he's doing. It's like, yeah, he's not, but he is. You understand? Like, that breaks the rule. I don't have the clip, but I did try to listen to a large portion of it. To be honest, I didn't feel like listening to the whole thing, but I listened, and Jeremy was saying at one point, he was like, it doesn't even make sense, because he was trying to say, like, if you say that, like, Jewish lobby or whatever, he's like, it doesn't make sense because they have no, like, he was saying like Vatican style stuff, or they have no organization like worldwide. Like, they don't have anything. So it's just it's so hateful and so silly for you to like even question anything, because they don't, like, they're like this group that doesn't even have that much, like, it's like the ADL, the World Jewish Congress. You know what I'm saying? Like, look that up. They look every time something happens, the World Jewish Congress comes out and makes a statement. The Anti-Defamation League, by definition, by Wikipedia, is an international organization. Like, it's like they have a lot of organizations and a lot of groups. I'm not saying they're the number one most powerful people or anything, or it's debatable. Talk about the Saudis, talk about white people, Christians, the Vatican. I don't really care. Jesuits, Freemasons, talk about whatever you want. I take offense to any of this stuff. It's like, it's a conversation. But in general, for Jeremy to play that stupid and be like, he can't even think of like a single international organization that they have, is just total BS. There's a reason that they don't have this conversation. They lose this conversation. They sound like liberals with this conversation. They prove that they believe in hate speech in this conversation. They call everything hateful with this conversation. There's a reason that they don't want people like Candace or anyone around, because they'll look stupid and fake. And the last thing Jeremy and Ben want is to look stupid and fake. So get rid of them. And then how do they convince you in 4 months that they're not stupid and fake? Here's Ben Shapiro versus a liberal. Ben Shapiro debates a drug addict on a college campus named Stephanie. Hi, my name is Stephanie. I just did way too many pills, and I think that there's 1,000 genders. Listen, oh my gosh, listen, that sounds like hate speech to me, but I don't believe in hate speech, but you're being really hateful towards my ethnicity, but I don't think it exists, but it does exist, and you have to recognize it, but you can't talk about it, okay? I mean, there's so much hate speech going on here, but I don't believe in hate speech, okay? And, there's only 2 genders. Woo! And now Michael Knowles. Hey guys, I'm funny, right? I'm funny because Jeremy spends millions of dollars on me. Aren't I so funny? Aren't I so impressive? Liberals and transgenders. Oh wow, dude, did you see those great debates? Oh my gosh, they just like totally crushed the left. I mean, did you see that drug addict 19-year-old girl who like probably got abused? I'm not saying she got abused, but like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, wow, you beat a college student at a debate, but How come nobody knows about any of this stuff? Because they won't allow you to ever see it. That's why I'm shocked they even went in that space, because it's like, they, like, honestly, I respect it, because it's just obvious that they're lying. It's like, he's like, and it's so funny, like, just the vibe of him when he was saying, like, I pay, like, he just sounds like, he's like, I pay people. I pay people to talk. Here, little dummy meat puppet, talk. Say what I want you to say. Say what I want you to say. And if you don't, you can't work. What do you think? I'm just paying people to disagree with me? I pay people. I'm paying with my money. And you're like, okay, cool, dude. And then it's like, and then he's like on Twitter, he's like, we value freedom of speech. And, we don't hire Candace Owens to agree with us. We hire Candace Owens to say her opinions, not mine. You're full of shit, bro. And everybody knows it. Listen, oh my gosh, when Anomaly hit that high note, it reminded me of other things that bother me. So I'm going to say it's hate speech, even though I don't believe in it. And the whole reason I'm even famous is that everybody said what I was saying is hate speech, and everybody rallied behind me for First Amendment principles. Those are principles that I have, except for one race, one religion, one country, which I consider hate speech. And I'll keep saying it's hate speech, and I'll ignore the laws that are being passed in the legislation, and I'll literally just repeat them on my social media pages. And then I'll just say it's hateful when anybody talks about it and anyone brings it up. I'll just say it's hateful, and they're just being hateful, and they just hate me just out of nowhere. They just hate me. Everything's so hateful. I mean, even comedies kind of get hateful now. Oh no, everybody's realizing that I'm a total hypocrite. Wait, give me a liberal. Jeremy, go find me a liberal on a college campus that is half alive, that hates themselves, so I can look really smart again. Coming right up, Ben. There's only two genders. Listen. If you think there's more than two genders, you're mentally ill. Okay, that's crazy. That's crazy talk. That's so crazy. Oh my gosh. And then liberals are like, Ben's being so hateful. And then like everyone's like, you can't just say everything's hateful. And Ben's like, but that's what I do, and they don't even realize I'm doing it. Oh my gosh. It's like, And what I'm realizing too is I believe in God, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, to be specific. And I'm realizing that patience is a virtue. I think I lack patience sometimes. I mean, there's a lot, I'm not a perfect person. There's a lot of things I lack, but there's a lot of things I don't lack too. But anyway, sometimes like I'm always in a rush. I'm always on the go. It's just like there's so much to do. I've been more patient recently, and everything's unfolding where I'm like, it has to happen on God's timing. I might do a video on Crowder's former employee. His name was, I think he called him not gay Jared, but Jared Monroe. He came out recently and he said that, thank you, Amir. Appreciate the super chat. He said, always keeping 100. Amir Odom, I appreciate you, brother. Congrats on your success, and let's chat soon. Jared Monroe said that Crowder signed him to an NDA and a non-compete. And it's been years that he hasn't been able to work in conservative media. And every time he tries to do or say something, he didn't say Steven Crowder, but he said that my former employee sends lawyers at me. Listen, NDAs are not that uncommon, but like a non-compete in media, I don't sign to media companies, but I would never sign that. Like that says that you can't, like, that's kind of crazy. And he's responsible for what he signed, but at the same time, like, what does Crowder want to ruin this guy's life forever? Like Jared can never work in conservative media. It's horrific. Like, it's diabolical. Like, he's not allowing this guy to work at other media companies. Dude, that's not normal. Like, Candace worked at Prager. Candace worked at Daily Wire. Tucker worked here. Tucker worked there. Everyone in media is allowed to like go to other places. You don't sign like a slavery contract that says you can only work here for the rest of your life or else you're screwed. That's insane. That's what Crowder allegedly is doing to Jared. So this is why I'm saying it's God's timing. I would never want to work with somebody like that. And I got the Crowder Daily Wire situation completely right. I'm talking about the Daily Wire now, and I said that they weren't wrong for the whole contract thing. Everybody was on Crowder's side, like he was exposing Daily Wire. Once again, I was 100% right on that. Daily Wire, I even said that then. I was like, Daily Wire's doing other stuff that Crowder will never talk about either, because he's exactly the same, but he's exaggerating, lying about this contract, trying to make himself into the hero when allegedly his work environment's even worse. So it's like, Crowder, it's like you're not letting this guy work at other companies. That's diabolical. Daily Wire, I've always known. I even had a conversation with Patrick Bet David. I'm going to say, because it's nothing private or personal. It's something that I told him. But we were chatting, you know, when he was considering possibly hiring me. And I said a lot of media companies don't want to hire me. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I'm just very honest. And I don't care. I'm confident in what I do. And I said Daily Wire would never hire me. And he asked me, why do you think they would never hire you? And I said, because of my foreign policy. I'm America first. I believe in the First Amendment, and I don't believe in hate speech laws. And I think Ben, you know, puts a certain situation above that. And I don't think they would ever hire anybody who talks about that stuff. You know, I pretty much said that. I don't know if it's word for word or I just said foreign policy, but I've known for years that it's not like I couldn't get hired to a media company. I knew Daily Wire would never hire me because and now Jeremy has confirmed yesterday that he never would hire somebody that way. And that's why they got to get rid of Candace Owens. But in general, it's like, I wouldn't want to work with Crowder. I wouldn't want to, like, it's all revealing itself. Because at the end of the day, it's like, if it's true, then it's true. It doesn't matter what people think or say. So it's like all of these things are happening. They hire Chris Cuomo. Daily Wire gets rid of Candace Owens for that. Crowder's ex-employee says he's not even allowed to work in media, and he's just been getting sued to tens of thousands of dollars for years because he signed some sort of non-compete. Like, it's just like crazy. So I'm just so grateful, you know, like I'm so grateful that I never got there. It never would have worked because I'm so stubborn and I see through this stuff. But like, you know, imagine I did sign a deal with somebody and I had to deal with all that crap. It's like, I'm so glad that nobody liked me, you know, like I'm so glad they weren't interested because it's like, you know, that's God. Like I'm not, you know, some people are non-religious. Like, oh, that's not God. I believe so. You know, that it's just like, be patient. Everybody's not going to do what you want them to do when they do it. But at a certain point, people will figure stuff out and things will work out. So I'm very grateful I never had to work with any of these people because it gets way uglier. Like, you know, Jared did a lot of funny stuff with Crowder. To be honest, I think some of Crowder's funniest stuff is with Not Gay Jared or Jared Monroe and Owen Benjamin. Those are some of my favorite Crowder sketches. And the funny thing is, Owen used to always say this stuff about Crowder, and everyone used to say, Owen Benjamin's so jealous. Oh, he's just jealous. Oh, he's just hateful. And Owen always used to say, he's like, I never signed an NDA, so I'm allowed to say this stuff. And he used to say years before this came out, years before Jared said anything. Owen Benjamin used to say, Crowder won't even let him work in other media companies. Like, not only did he sign an NDA where he can't talk about it, he can't say what's going on, and he also can't get a job somewhere else. Like, if he tries to get a job somewhere else, Owen said that, you know, they were using that non-compete to try to basically like blacklist him. And it's like, oh, you're just so hateful. You're so jealous. That's what they always say to everybody when they're like 5 years ahead. Oh, you just hate him. It's like, maybe or maybe not, you know, maybe not. Maybe everyone's not being hateful. Owen shared a clip on his Twitter today of Roseanne having his back. You know, Roseanne is a great friend of mine. Obviously, people know this just because of the topic. I'm going to say it doesn't matter necessarily, but Roseanne is very Jewish. She's very Zionist. And I consider her one of my best friends in this industry. I don't even have that many friends. She's one of my only friends in this industry because I've hung out with her several times. I'm friends with her. She's a great person. We don't agree on everything, and I don't care because I know she's a good person, and she's not a phony in that category, and she doesn't try to blacklist you, you know, and do all that stuff. So even with Owen has said some wild stuff that a lot of people consider hateful, has done some wild comedy, and even Roseanne said that, you know, just like they blacklisted her from comedy, which they did, you know, she also mentioned Owen and like had his back, even though she has every reason not to have his back based on her race and based on things he said, but even she had his back. And it's like, that just shows, you know, she's got a good heart and a good soul. I don't care what people think that watch. I love Roseanne. I appreciate her. But that's it. Like, everybody always just thinks you're crazy or hateful. And sometimes comedy is funny. Like, to go to any comedy store, it is crazy. It is wild. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it wouldn't be funny if it was normal. Yeah, let's just have a normal conversation. Yeah, how funny is that? Like, it's only funny if it's funny. It's like people that I remember Patrice O'Neal said this, rest in peace. Patrice O'Neal was talking about the controversy where it was like Don Imus. He said something quote unquote racist, and Patrice O'Neal had his back, and he said, it's always unfunny people trying to tell funny people what funny is. And he's like, you guys don't know funny. How are you going to tell me what's funny when you don't know funny? You're not funny. You don't know funny. And that's what's going on. So it's just interesting to see all the people, like they said Roseanne was so crazy and everybody likes her again now. They said Owen was being jealous of Crowder, and now everything he said about him as far as like and to be honest, I didn't even know that years ago. I figured it out within the last year or two, but years ago, it's like, how do I know what he signed his people to or what went on? But it's like a non-compete, so you can't work. That's crazy. And everything I thought and said about Daily Wire is true. I've never said they didn't do bad work or they haven't done good work. Daily Wire has a lot of good employees. They have a great facility. It's clean. People are nice and friendly. They put out a lot of good work, good documentaries, they're good takes. They let Candace Owens talk about the pharmaceutical industry. Matt Walsh. I'm not saying they've never done anything good. The children thing that they're trying to push back against the left, that's an interesting endeavor too. We'll see how it plays out. It's not like I'm sitting here hating. It's just like, I know they won't hire anybody that talks about these things, and they'll kick anybody out and, try to smear anybody as hateful. Tony with a super chat. He said, here's a legitimate question. Why are DNA tests in Israel illegal? And why shouldn't Candace be allowed to comment on IDF on TikTok? The first thing, sorry, I got a little like sidetracked. The first thing is interesting. If you Google, apparently in Israel, you need some sort of like form in order to get like the 23andMe type DNA tests. Like it's basically illegal, and you need like a special form or you need like a special okay in order to ever use one, because they don't allow people in Israel to use those DNA tests. It's true. Look it up. I'll look up the exact wording of it because I've read that before. Hold on. Let me see real quick. Test. Because it's mainstream stuff. You're allowed to get it. It's just, I think it's just harder to get. Like, let me see. I'm trying to find the exact thing, because they say in certain things that like it's not illegal, but you do need like a special search thing or something. Let me see. Israel DNA tests form. I'm trying to find it. I can't find the article right now. I've read it before, and it wasn't like a crazy far off source or anything. It was a, I guess genetic would be the right word, not DNA. Yeah, people are saying it's not banned on Twitter. Okay, here it is. Jerusalem Post. That's how, so this is like a mainstream Israeli publication. It says, hold on. Did I get kicked off my own stream? Am I here? It's freezing. I don't know. I guess it's freezing, but it says, want to fully understand your family genealogy, not without a court order. According to some ancestry websites, there are indicators to tell you. If you live in Israel and want to find out where your family comes from, what do you do? One thing is for certain, an ancestry kit from the local pharmacy is out of the question, according to a Yedo Adornot report. While millions of such kits have been sold in the United States, Israelis are forbidden to buy ancestry DNA kits from the store without presenting a court order, as the Israeli government controls these type of purchases due to a genetic information law. Sorry about that. I froze for a little bit. Yeah, I just reconnected internet and I'm doing stuff, so it's not that crazy. But so that's the thing. I just always like to be accurate. You can get one, but you need a court order to get one because they have some sort of genetic law. It's interesting. I mean, I'm not going to sit and say I know everything about it, but that's very interesting. That's all I'm going to say, and you could read that article if you want to like learn more about it. But yeah, I forget what the second thing you said, something about TikTok and Candace and the IDF. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't speak for. Someone said, why is the New Testament forbidden to anyone under 18? What are they afraid of? Is that true in Israel? I don't know if that's true, so I can't speak on it, but I will look it up after. Thank you, Tony, for the super chats. I'll look that up, and people could look it up if you want to verify it. I want to say this real quick. This is my stance. I can't speak for everyone else, and I'm tired of even doing this because it sounds so pandery and lame, but I'm just being honest. It's not because I'm not trying to distance myself or whatever, but the truth is I say what I mean. What I say is what I think. I don't speak I'm not all these other people, right? I'm not Candace Owens. We don't think 100% the same things. In fact, we are the same on a lot of topics, but there's a lot of topics that she handles differently than me. And it's not to distance myself. It's just to say we're different people. I'm just tired of, right? And I want to make this clear because it's the most annoying thing to me about Republican media they are so snaky, and they blacklist and talk shit and say, like, if that person even agreed with you, you're out. Like, if Candace doesn't condemn Kanye West, she is Kanye West. If Nick Fuentes retweets Candace Owens, she is Candace Owens. That happened to me too. It's like, oh, he retweeted what you said 5 years ago, so it's like, it's so freaking annoying where it's like, I'm not these people. Owen Benjamin's another one. It's like, we're different people. He has different ideas and thoughts and streams, and it's like, how come Jeremy Boring can talk in an X chat with certain people and not have 15 articles written about them, but if anyone else talks in a chat with them, they have 15 articles written about them? It's just so annoying. And I'm not saying this to be pandering at all. It's just like, I'm just so tired of it. It's like they want to scare you into never talking to anyone or saying anything that they don't want you to say. And it's just like super frustrating, because when it happens, no one believes you. But also it's like, I want to be able to analyze things without being blamed for everything. Like, I wouldn't have said everything that was said that I played in the audio clips, but I'm analyzing the situation. I'm just analyzing it, and then I'm saying what I think. I'm not speaking for everyone. I'm not speaking for every Israeli activist or Palestinian activist or people criticizing what's going on in Gaza or whatever. I'm not them. And I'm tired of being blamed for everything that they're doing. This is my stance on America and Israel and the relationship. Because I just want to be clear, since I'm always lied about and they say it's hateful and this and that, I never even really thought that much about Israel, because it never really occurred to me in foreign policy. I didn't know that much about what they were doing. And it came up a few times in the Syria conversation, but it wasn't even a thought in my mind, because I'm not hateful and I just have better things to do. When I started focusing on that more was when I read the hate speech laws. So can there please be some accountability? It's not like Jeremy Boring's doing them, but they always try to gaslight you into acting like this isn't happening. And you're so hateful if you talk about this topic. The reason I can't speak for everybody, because I'm not responsible for everybody. I'm not in everybody's movement. Stop blaming me. Oh, you're in these people's movement. No, I'm not. I'm a hip hop artist. I'm a news analyst. I'm an athlete. I'm myself. I have friends. I'll talk to people and interview people, but I'm not them. Leave me alone. But anyway, my interest in this topic came up when I realized Trump and DeSantis were total hypocrites. The same way Jeremy Boring says, on one hand, we like that Candace disagrees with me and Ben. And then 3 months later, he says, well, yeah, I'm not going to pay someone to speak with opinions that disagree with mine on those topics. So it's like, it's the hypocrisy of it all. When I realized Trump and DeSantis passed them through legislation and I read them, I'm like, this literally makes part of the Bible illegal. It's crazy. It's insane. I believe it's an infringement on my religious liberty. I believe it's an infringement on the First Amendment. It's not only hate speech laws for one country, one race, and one religion. I would even say some of the laws are anti-Christian. Not all of them, but some of them are, because it includes Jesus. It says Jesus's name in the hate speech laws. Jesus Christ. That they're now saying is hateful when you say Christ is king, because some people said it on a message board. It's like, it just never ends. But it's like, that's when I started paying attention. I'm not thrilled with what's going on in the Middle East, just like I'm not thrilled with what's going on in, Russia and Ukraine. But it's like, that's not my main concern. And I obviously am concerned with what's going on there and people dying. Like, obviously that's important and sad. But it's like, my whole angle before that even happened was the relationship between America and Israel and the speech laws, and then the smearing and censoring and blacklisting in conservative media and even Democrat media. They had one guy on MSNBC that was pushing an alternative narrative on that topic, and they fired him. It's like, it's both sides, but it's even more prevalent on the right. So it's like, that's my interest in it. That's where I'm going. It's not what they said. It's not, well, they said that and you won't say that to that, to that, to that. Like, that, stop doing that shit. It's so freaking annoying. It's so fake. And that's all they ever do. That's why Jeremy, like, if you really listen and are knowledgeable and not letting, like, be like, oh, that was reasonable what he said. It's like, it sounds reasonable because it's well spoken, but nothing he really said makes sense. And that doesn't mean everything everyone else has ever said and done is right. I don't think it's right. I'm not these people. It's not my clique. It's not my group. And I'm not saying that to distance myself. It's just true. I'm 34 now. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like, I don't need a club or anything, like, that's just my opinion. Like, I'm not looking for a club. I'm not looking for a group. I'm not looking for internet friends at this point. I'm looking for like real life experiences and things that matter, not the other stuff. But in general, it's like, this is my interpretation of it. since this has happened, I just want to say this, and I'll read a few comments, and I'm going to keep this under 2 hours, hopefully under 1:45. But anyway, 1 hour, 45 minutes. But the opposition to this stuff has grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And as it grows and grows and grows, it grows, it grows, they point to the most fringe people and say, that's who everyone is. They're getting along or whatever. And that's all it is. And they're all hateful and they're all being hateful. And that's what it is. It's just the hate is rising. There's no accountability. There's no awareness. There's no honesty. And then what they're doing with the anti-Semitism speech laws and calling everything hateful is the same thing the left wing did. The left wing said to progressives and Bernie people and moderates and even certain conservatives and said, you're right wing, you're right wing, you're right wing, you're right wing. And eventually millions of liberals just became right wing. And they said, you're far right, you're far right. Not everybody, but then some people became further right. And I'm not saying like, it depends what you mean by far right. Like far right is what? Like Ron Paul, in my view, would be like economically further right than everybody. Even though he's nice, he's way more towards the libertarian side than, but on a social scale, I guess it depends how you classify far left and far right. But in general, it's like they called you all these things. They put you in a corner. And then some people became these things and other people didn't. They just became normal and everybody act like normal is right wing. So it's like the more you do that and just call people names without being able to explain yourself, you're building up the opposition. You're building, like the Liberal Party built up the Republican Party. I don't know if it was purposeful or not, but it's like they lost a lot of steam by going too far. It's the same thing Jeremy and Ben and all these people in right-wing media are doing. They just don't seem to care that they're doing it, but that's what they're doing. It's like they're calling everyone names, blacklisting them, smearing them, saying they're being hateful, and it's just creating more opposition to the narrative that they want everyone to believe. They want everyone to agree with them, but they're creating more and more and more people who disagree with them. And then every time it happens, they just say everyone's being hateful. Some people are being hateful, but not everyone's being hateful. And he can't even name a single person who he doesn't think is hateful. He's a phony. So is Ben. Tired of it. But anyway, God bless him still. It's just like now on X, Elon Musk did a few things. I'm not saying he did everything. He brought a bunch of people back. And that alone changed the discussion because a lot of people that were banned, not all of them, but a lot of people that were banned weren't all the dumbest, craziest people. A lot of people were intelligent and wanted to add to the conversation or funny comedians, whatever. And now that, not only did Elon bring people back, but also it's been 5 years. Like it's like the national consciousness and the, the conservative consciousness and the average conservative thought is different than it was in 2015. It's different than it was in 2010. Why? Because things change and things get better and things get worse and people change and that will shift one way or the other. You understand? So like, because of what Elon did and just because it's been 5 years of the Republican Party being fake, more people agree with me than Jeremy Boring. More people on X agree with me than agree with, Ben Shapiro. So what do they do with the fact that they're losing the conversation? They're losing the debate. They're getting ratioed on all their posts. No one believes them. They just say people are being hateful. They're just like, oh, that's just hate speech. Yeah, people are annoying. And I have to check myself from doing it too, because I want to be clear. It's easy to just get annoyed when people like call you hateful and say hateful things to you on Twitter. You want to write it all off as that because like there's trolls or whatever. Like when I say something and a troll comes and says something to me, it's hard to not internalize it and like start being like, oh, everyone's saying that, or that's what it all is. It's like, no, that's what that person said. Yes, obviously there's more people than just that person, but it's like, I have to stop myself from doing that too. Cause it's like when people flock to your comments to just be rude to you, it's annoying. So I understand why Jeremy and Ben feel that way and stuff. But it's like, it's not all hate. They're losing the dialogue. They're losing the conversation. They've lost the moral high ground. They've lost the conservative high ground. Their free speech principles they don't even add up to reality. They're contradicting themselves constantly. And the more that people start figuring it out, they just keep getting ratioed. And then they just keep saying it's just like things are just too hateful. So it's like the same thing the left does. Like the left loses the conversation around women's sports and they just say it's all hate. It's all hate. That's how you've lost the argument. Yeah. There's, I consider certain racial activists hateful towards me, but do you see me sitting here just crying about hate all the time? No, because I can explain why I'm right and they're wrong. Like if I talk about BLM or Sean King, or you know what I'm saying? I name any like left wing black group that I consider hateful. Anybody. Even if I think like Ben is being hateful, which I'm not, I don't feel like a victim or anything. Like I don't even think that way. But anyway, if I did, like I'd have to explain why. Like why? So it's not even worth talking about that element of it, because it's like, yeah, there's horrible people out there, but why? Can you explain it without just using buzzwords? If you can, then I'll believe you. It's like, oh, you can explain yourself for 15 minutes and like explain why that's wrong and that's right and that's good and that's evil. And that, like, if you can't and you're just like, that's bad, that's hateful, you probably don't know what you're talking about. That's just the truth of like any conversation. You know, I spent a long time here. I didn't say Ben is hateful. I didn't say Jeremy's hateful. I didn't use a word and call like what he did by saying, this is what the word anti-Semitism means. And I'm not able to name a single conservative influencer or anybody off the top of my head that disagrees with me in Gaza that isn't hateful. That's what Jeremy said, essentially. They probably hypothetically could exist. I just can't think of one. Okay, well, you're not dumb. You know a lot of people, so you can't even think of one. It takes you 20 minutes to even think of one. Okay, so that would be like me saying the Daily Wire, and I'm not saying this, I'm just example. The Daily Wire is a racist organization, and I believe that they are suffering from racism. What does racism mean? It means you hate black people. I think they all hate black people, and I can't, you know, I'm not saying it's not possible to not hate black people and disagree with me on this topic, but I just think that they all hate black people. Okay, can you name not just one at Daily Wire, but can you name one conservative commentator in the whole world in any topic that can disagree with you on that, BLM or whatever, and not be hateful? And you're like, hypothetically, yeah, but I can't think of one. So that means that everyone that comes to your mind, Jeremy Boring's not stupid. He could, if I sat him down like a test and be like, yo, name 100 conservative influencers. He's been in the game for so long, he could probably name everybody. You know what I'm saying? Not every single person, but even his own hosts have had on hundreds of guests. He knows hundreds of conservatives. He can't name one that he doesn't consider hateful. It would be like me saying that their whole organization is this word, but in that word means hate. And I can't think of one person in the whole world with my ideology that's not hateful. It's like, it's so fake. It's so disingenuous, excuse me. And that's why I talk about this stuff more. I do want to talk about, honestly, I want to be patient because I don't want to talk out my ass, but like the Diddy situation, someone's like, why don't you talk about Diddy? I don't know that much about it. Why don't you talk about the crash? I don't know that much about it. Why, why don't you, I will talk about those things if it's a slow news day and I don't have anything else that's more passionate, but like, I know what I'm talking about in this situation and it's personally affected, I've seen it happening for 7 years. And for the first time in 5-6 years, people finally are like getting it. So it's just interesting to me to talk about and I understand it a little better. I'll talk about other topics soon. I don't know. I saw that last night and that was what inspired me to kind of make this one. Someone said Joe Rogan's the next to convert to Islam. Yeah, I don't see that happening, but maybe if he hasn't converted to Christianity or Islam at this point, I don't see that, but who knows? Someone said 20 years ago, South Park questioned hate laws. They skirt the line for sure of like libel and defamation laws, by doing comedy and parody. They've done a lot. South Park is really funny and really, edgy. I personally like South Park. Someone said, I'm happy your trolls are taking a break this week. Yeah, it's like I don't consider every comment a troll, but there are trolls. And like I started realizing that some were trying to like get me to say stuff. It was just like annoying, but yeah, it's just easier when, you're on Facebook, so you don't see that much, but it's easier when people aren't acting too crazy. But you're on Facebook and I get all the YouTube comments too. I think YouTube comments tend to be crazier, to be honest. And I think it's because people are like more anonymous, but Kel Watts said, God bless, soul is higher than the flesh. Life is hard, I must digress, but anomalies, truth pounds the chest. Powerful message transcending the rest. All right, we got a rapper here. I like that. That's some fire poetry. I appreciate it. Let me read. Where can I leave a review for the hoodie I bought from the store? I just want to let people know it's excellent. Yeah, I don't have reviews set up. Maybe I should, but thank you so much. Like, I appreciate you liking the sweatshirt. everybody like that, the quality, how it feels, how long it lasts and stuff, like everybody loves the sweatshirts, I think, the most out of everything. So thank you so much, dreamrare.com. That review will do. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback. Let me see. Someone said I miss trolling and making edgy memes, but it's apparently illegal now. I don't know if memes are illegal, but probably some are considered hate speech. I don't know. Let me read a few more. Am I going to play Klavan saying who wrote the Bible now? I already did a stream on that, but eventually I just want to move on. I might do a video on the Crowder thing, though. I find that interesting. I mean, you know, I don't like to get involved in other people's drama. And to me, this stream is not like a drama stream. I'm very, like, there was a lot of like dramatic things that happened in that live stream or whatever it was. I didn't pick those parts because I wanted to like make a clear point that actually mattered, that resonated and went further than just like my opinion. So I did the stream. But when it comes to the Crowder thing, it's like I do personally, as someone that has done media, it's not like I've signed a deal with anybody, but as someone who's worked in media for 7 years now and worked in music for, I don't know, 20 years now, I think it's crazy that you would try to stop your former employee from working at another news network. Like, that's, to me, that's crazy. I don't know. And I don't think it's standard. I've never heard of that. Like, that's never a thing that I've ever heard of. Like, have you never seen news hosts hop from place to place? Of course you have. Like, leave or whatever, resign. It happens all the time. I've never heard of this. So I find that story interesting because, like, that's really messed up. Like, I feel bad for Jared Monroe. I just feel like that's, you know, being a mean employee or saying something mean and you're like, oh, he made me mad or he, you know, treated me bad because he yelled at me. It's like, whatever, you know, like everything. I'm not saying it's always good, but like nothing, it's not like every situation goes perfect. But if you're like suing your former employer from trying to like I mean, Jared's also a comedian. It's like he can't have a job now for the rest of his life. He's a father. Like, you're just going to sue him or whatever. Allegedly, if he tries to work somewhere, like, that's super messed up. I've never heard of that. That's crazy. And that's what Jared says is happening. So I might cover that, allegedly. Someone said, talk smack about some other well-known YouTubers. It's what we all want to see. Hate on Tim Pool really quick. I know people like my Tim Pool jokes, but I'm not trying to hate on people and I'm not trying to talk about other YouTubers, but this topic means a lot to me. I'm going to say it again, then I'm going to move on because I don't want to be repetitive. I know for a fact multiple media organizations have boxed me out for 5 years. I'm grateful for it now. I'm glad it happened, but it's like what bothers me the most about that is not money I haven't made. It's not attention I haven't gotten. It's the fact that they're running, like he even said he spent millions of dollars on each of his hosts. Millions, probably over $10 million. I don't know, because he's got a lot of hosts. If you're spending millions of dollars on all of them, but the second they talk about this topic, you fire them or would never hire them. Now that's why everybody in Republican politics doesn't know anything, you know, and that's what bothers me. It's not the fact that I didn't get that money or I didn't get that attention or that job or that speaking gig. Part of those annoy me a little bit, but in general, the overarching thing that really bothers me is like everyone's so confused because you're lying to them and spending a lot of money lying to them and using your resources now to mislead them and then boxing out anybody who isn't. So it's like, it's it's like a paper house. Is that what they say? There's a saying about that or whatever. It's like a house built out of sticks, or I don't know. Didn't the wolf blow it down? Or I'm just being dumb now, but you get what I'm joking around. It's like, it's not going to work. Like it's all failing now. I'm not saying their company's going to fail. I don't want it to necessarily. I'm just saying it's not like, oh, they're still going to make money. I'm sure they're still going to crush. They're doing a lot of ventures. They're doing a lot of good work, but it's like they're building their foundation on a lie, and people deserve the right to know that it's a lie. If you're going to sit there and say Candace is allowed to disagree, because listen, say what you want about Candace. She's a superstar, right? This is why this is such a big story. She's a superstar. She can get millions of views anywhere. She's one of the most culturally relevant people in recent political history. she's transcended beyond politics to where like I'll meet like a chick that's like from a different country that's white, that's liberal, and even she likes Candace Owens. Like I'm not even kidding. Like I've met like white chicks from Europe that were like left wing, and they're like, oh, I like Candace Owens. Like she made an impact that people don't even really understand. So it's like when they hire Candace, they can do whatever they want, but they're sitting here saying, we hired Candace because she's a superstar. We hired Candace because we want Candace to be Candace. Let her be herself and speak her own opinions on our platform. And then they say that 4 months ago and then get rid of her and then say, no, we're not just hiring people to disagree with us. I'm paying people to say what I think. It's like, that's the truth. Thank you. I'm not mad that you're doing that, but tell people that. They have the right to know that that's what you're doing. You're not hiring superstars. It's the same with Jordan Peterson. Dude, Jordan Peterson, like look at his interviews with foreign leaders and how he is. He's wild. Like I don't even like Jordan that much anymore. He's got some good points, but like when it comes to his foreign policy, it's identical with Ben's. In fact, he's even more deranged about it. But it's like, if he wasn't that, they don't want like, that's why they got Jordan Peterson. It's like, if he wasn't that, he'd be fired too. Matt Walsh would be fired if he read what he wrote. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. That's the most important part about Daily Wire. If you say, which he said, I would never hire somebody who says this. Okay, let me switch the word Israel with America. Is it the same? I don't believe it. I don't think if Candace came out and said every crazy thing she said about Israel or Jewish stuff, if she said it about Christians, would she have gotten fired? If she would have went even harder against Christians or Christianity or Christian lobbyists, Christian that, she would have been there. They wouldn't have fired her. Okay, just tell the truth. You know, if she would have said America's doing this, America's doing that, America's genociding, blah, 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 whatever, she would have been there still. And they would have been, oh, this her opinion. It's just her opinion. She's Candace. She's a superstar. Let her do what she wants. Oh, you don't have my opinion on that? Okay, you're fired. That's the truth. Everybody deserves to know. And they deserve to know that people are being boxed out on this topic. And everyone that's not boxed out is scared of talking about it in any sort of format, because it's like that word used to, not anymore, but it used to carry a lot of weight. And I will say this too. I don't know for sure. And then I'm going to leave in a second. The lawsuit that Candace is allegedly about to get in, I believe that the anti-Semitism, hate speech, IHRA laws will be brought up in court. Why wouldn't they be? You know, because normally it's like, oh, well, I have the First Amendment right, which you do, but also, you know, First Amendment and libel and defamation. Why did they get sued? Why did Nicholas Sandmann make money? Because they, you know, they flirted on the lines of free speech and libel and defamation, and they lost that case. When it comes to the little boy that dressed up as like a Native American for the Chiefs game, they called him racist. They said he hated natives, and you know that flirted on the lines of libel and defamation. They didn't have the free speech to do that. These anti-Semitism IHRA laws are really just defamation laws for Israel and ethnic and religious Jewish people. So what is the name of one of the biggest Jewish organizations in the country and the world? The Anti-What League. Defamation. These are not just hate speech laws, they're defamation laws. So when Candace goes to court, you better believe that the defamation laws are going to be brought up in court. And Candace will be saying, I have the First Amendment to say what I want. And the anti-Semitism, hate speech, defamation laws that Trump, DeSantis, Youngkin, and Republicans pass through will be like, well, you know, according to the law that has been passed through government, depending what state you're in or depending how it's used, says it's not. And it's going to go one of two ways. Either Candace is going to win the lawsuit and it's going to be free speech. She's going to lose the lawsuit because she committed a hate speech defamation that's been passed through law in the last 5-6 years. Or it'll eventually possibly go to the Supreme Court and they'll have to rule whether the First Amendment supersedes these defamation laws for one race, one religion, and one country. If you're Christian, you don't have special defamation laws. If you're Catholic, you don't have defamation laws. If you're, you know, ethnically any other race but Jewish, you don't have these laws or defamation laws. But now that exists there. Like that's the real story, you know? And I'm like 5 years ahead on that stuff, 6 years ahead on that stuff, 7. When all this comes out, everyone's going to be talking about it like it's brand new. And you could say, oh, I remember Anomaly talked about those defamation hate speech rules. And in 2019, you know, they don't, it's also obvious. And with that being said, I heard that, you know, I'm going to leave on this note. I might do more videos later this week. Obviously it's Tuesday, so I definitely will. I told people months ago that I was over RFK's campaign. RFK is a great guy. He's you know what I'm saying? He's been great with Big Pharma, Monsanto. Like, he's a legend. I appreciate him. I respect him. Nothing really bad to say about him, but I've just, just seeing who he surrounds himself by, I was like, dude, I'm over his campaign. And apparently today, most people are too, because he hired some Democrat donor that I don't know. I got to look into it more, but people are saying that they've constantly funded Biden, progressives, even Gascon, that DA, like, allegedly. I got to look into it, obviously, but it's like, once again, I'm 5 months ahead on this. Now everyone's saying, oh, you were right. I didn't know he was going to pick that person, but I just, he was on an apology tour with someone that I had a personal experience with that I don't even want to talk about because they just want attention. But it's like they're trying to rope me into things and call me names and say that I'm white and Hispanic and I'm racist and supremacist and all that. Like, once somebody does that to me and basically just tries to lie about me and smear my character, and then RFK's marching around with them, it's like the campaign's over to me. You know what I'm saying? I already know he's a phony. I already know he caved. I already know that he's it's not a real opposition outsider campaign, and I want nothing to do with someone that personally smears me like that. So it's like, once that happened, I'm like, yeah, I'm not interested in the campaign ever now. Why not? This, that, I like RFK, he's my hero. These are games that people play, but it's like, if you listen to what I say, when I say it, I'm not always going to be like 100% accurate, but like, I'm not talking out of my ass. I'm saying it because I believe it. And usually I believe it because it's not just like coming out of nowhere. So, once again, there's going to be millions of people today. Not everyone. People are still going to like him and vote for him, but millions of people today are going to be like, oh, RFK's campaign is done to me because he hired, this Democrat donor and whatever. And it's like, these things, like, it's like, I saw this guy on Instagram. I follow, his name is Huey Media. He's a super nice guy. Does good work. I saw him post something in his story where he said, if someone lies a bunch or does these things a bunch, like, you got to convince me you're telling the truth now. I'm not just going to be like, oh, it must be true. Like, that's essentially what he posted. And it's so true. It's not saying like I've seen RFK running around lying, but it's like, once you do 1, 2, 3 things that just seems really off, like, there's probably a reason that it's off. And it's like, it's like the burden of proof. Now you should, like, once someone lies to you once, twice, 3 times, it's not to say they're bad about everything they do, but like, if you're willing to lie about that, or you're willing to do that, or you're willing to do that and lie about that, what else are you willing to lie about and do, right? Nobody's perfect. Everybody's flawed and sin, but like, that's the problem with Trump too. It's like, Trump did so many things that were messed up, fake, swampy, bad, liar, pharmaceutical shill, idiot, you know what I'm saying? Like, and nobody wants to talk about it. So it's like, it's just a merry band of like loyal follow, like, it's disrespectful to yourself and your mind and your soul to like not at least notice that. I'm not saying not to vote for him. I'm not saying not to go to an event, but you're just going to gaslight yourself into pretending like that never happened. And then a year later, you're going to be like, you were right. How did you know that? Because I don't lie to myself. You know what I'm saying? I don't just sit here and lie and be like, oh, that never happened. I like the guy. Like, everyone does that. So it's like, I just was laughing because on X now, I saw a bunch of people were like, you were right. Damn. Damn. How'd you know that? I was like, I didn't know who he was going to choose for vice president. I just saw a few moves he was making and I'm like, it's not going to be right. It would be like if I ran for president and my vice president, who I was campaigning with, was Thomas Massey. That's a good sign. If I'm marching around with like the CEO of Google, or you know what I'm saying, or like Bill Gates or something, like, even if you liked me prior, it's like, it's a red flag. You're totally right to be like, yeah, that's not the anomaly that I used to like, or like, why would he do that? It doesn't make you hateful. It doesn't mean you're bad and like you can't like anything I've done, but like, red flags are red flags. You don't have to live your whole life by it, but like, if you could tell by the company you keep, like, where your campaign's going to go. And I've made that mistake in the past as well. I made that mistake in 2016, etc. Now, that's the most interesting thing. I'll leave on this note. When it comes to Trump, if he wins, who's his cabinet going to be? You don't even need to wait 4 years to see who Trump's going to be and what he's going to do. Who's the Secretary of State? That's his foreign policy. Who's the Secretary of Treasury? That's the money. Who's the Secretary of Transportation? That's some diversity hire who got the job because Pete Buttigieg got it this time. And, Mitch McConnell's wife got it under Trump. So apparently you just throw people at the Secretary of Transportation when they don't know what they're doing or they have no experience. And then, the transportation in this country goes to shit. The DOJ, exactly. Department of Justice, who's the Attorney General, who's the FDA, who's the head of the HHS. That's what the Food and Drug Administration is going to look like. That's what your Food and Drug. Trump hired pharmaceutical lobbyists and shills to run the FDA and HHS for 4 years. He's not a victim of what happened. He's the reason it happened. He's horrific. He scammed you. He didn't scam me. You're just as dumb as a liberal. I'm not saying not to vote for him. It makes sense to vote for him. I'm just saying, stop hating yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Once we all stop lying to ourselves, things are easier to figure out. But it's like, you don't need to wait 4 years to see if Trump's the real deal. See who he picks as his vice president. It's probably going to suck. Hopefully not. And then see who he picks as his cabinet. If he hires as bad of a cabinet as he did the first time, he's not going to be who you want him to be. He's not going to do what he says. It's all going to be fake, just like it was last time. So that's like, you know everything you need to know about a president by who he picks as his cabinet. Who's running the Secretary of State right now? Anthony Blinken. You know what I'm saying? Biden's not, he's talking. No one's listening to him. I don't even know if Anthony Blinken listens to him. Maybe, but probably not. I would guess that Anthony Blinken is like 5 times smarter than Joe Biden, and he's younger, and like I seen him play the guitar. It was actually a cool clip. I'm not a fan of his foreign policy, but he was definitely like shredding and singing. Like, he's a talented guy. But anyway, Anthony Blinken's running it, and Biden's such a dumb, like, at least with Trump, like, you have to please him or he might fire you. Joe Biden, like, dude, Anthony Blinken could probably run circles around Joe Biden, and Joe Biden would fall over. So it's like, who's running Biden's administration? Go look at his cabinet. That's who's running his administration. And Trump's is going to be the same way. Trump is just cognizant enough to fire somebody if they bother him, but he doesn't even really fire people for the right reason. So it's like with Biden, like, is he even like there enough to make a real like on the spot decision? Has he fired anybody in this administration? Like, Trump fired a few people and switched them out. Has Biden done that at all? Like, maybe Karine Jean-Pierre, he switched out. That's like the only, but that's not even a real position. It's just like, who's the talking piece? Like, it's not like a position of power. It's a terrible position. You just have to pretend to be somebody else and just say what they want you to say. Like, you're not like creating policy. You're just like a parrot, professional parrot. That's what Kayleigh was, and Karine Jean-Pierre. I like Kayleigh. I'm just saying professional, like, this is what Trump says. This is what Biden thinks. What do you think? I don't get paid to think. I just like, yeah, it's not like they're like crafting foreign policy. They're just studying to try to not mess up to say what the president actually thinks. But appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for considering. I'll try to talk about more stories later this week. When it comes to like the edgy stories of the week and all that stuff, I got to learn more about it before I speak on it, because I like the Diddy thing. I know as much as everybody else. Like, everyone's heard rumors and stuff, but as far as like what's really going on, like, everyone's got a theory. I don't know. As it plays out, it'll get a little more clear. I'm just like looking at like videos on social media, but I don't really have like any sort of insight that's going to matter enough to even speak on it, because it's not going to be intelligent or groundbreaking. It's just going to be me reacting to things that I've seen that I don't even have a good opinion on. So, I mean, we'll see how that plays out. Appreciate you guys. God bless. And thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being here. Check out dreamrare.com for the hats, the sweatshirts. Sweatshirts are almost sold out. If you like them as much as that lady did, God bless you. Thank you. You can get them at dreamrare.com. Everything on the shop is limited edition. I would say 90 to 100% of stuff will never come back. I don't know if I'm ever going to get those sweatshirts again. Even the hats and stuff, they've been a success. Maybe I'll do certain things again, but most likely this stuff is not going to be the same. And I'm trying to just do something else, do something a little different. We'll see, but I'll let you know. Thank you guys.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk. For $5 a month, you can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful.
Beautiful. My free email list is stayintouchwithme.com. So check the links below in the description.